Good morning, everybody. Hello, everyone. Give a little wave. Hi. Everyone else? Morning, officers. My name's David Smith. I'm from a campaign called Little Ninja UK. And it's looking at air pollution and the exposure to children. Now, what a lot of people don't realise in London is that when we talk about illegal levels of air pollution and toxic levels of air pollution, it seems something which is kind of far away and doesn't really affect us. I think what people sometimes don't recognise is that when they measure air pollution in London and they say it's illegal limits, they're actually measuring up here. It's a 2 to 2.4 metre height. So when they say it's illegal levels of air pollution, it's really important to know that you're all breathing much higher limits and much higher levels than what's being reported. And if you think about that and you think about children, which is certainly my case with 3 young children under 5, they're down here. Let me get down that level. So when we talk about breathing exhaust from car fumes, which is the source, this is the level that they're breathing at. So when we're thinking about how tall we are, they're breathing, research shows, around 30% more than we are. Then you start thinking actually, well, what about the children in buggies? Now, it's not down here, it's all the way down here. If you think about a child in a buggy, they're all the way down here. Their faces are this low, close to the ground. And then when you've got vehicles here, wheels here, exhaust pipes here, that's pretty serious what they're breathing. In addition to that, you may have noticed that children and babies breathe 3 times faster than we do. So they're actually, relative to their body weight, they're breathing 2 to 3 times more toxic air than we are. So we're talking higher concentrations because they're closer to the vehicle exhaust pipe, and we're talking higher volumes because they breathe much more rapidly and take in more air. In addition to that, until they're 5 to 6 years old, their immune system isn't developed, not fully developed. So they can't fight off these toxic fumes from these vehicle exhausts. Also for children, they don't stop developing and growing until they're around late teens, 18. So what they're breathing in, a lot of it is staying inside their body. When we talk around these fumes, it's not just noxious gases like NO2, which inflame the lungs, but also the particulate matter. So what we're talking about there is these small microscopic bits of metal, rubber, oil, plastic. You may have seen dispatches where they talk about tyres, and tyres are made out of plastic. So this stuff's tiny. So if you take a grain of hair, you could fit 30 bits of this particulate matter on 1 grain of hair. And that's the stuff they're breathing in. And there's even smaller in terms of nanoparticles. So they're taking this stuff in, it's going into their lungs, it's flaming their lungs, it's going right to the alveoli, the lung sacs, it's then transferring into the blood. And so this stuff is going to everywhere that blood goes. So if you think about your body, blood goes everywhere, including past the blood-brain barrier. So now we're talking around inflammation of the brain, impacts on intelligence, we're hearing reports, impacts on IQ, neurological development. This is what children are breathing on their way to school to start their day of learning, and this is what they're being exposed to. So we say, well, okay, research says it's worse in some places than others. So where's it worse? Where the traffic is. So if you're on a main road, that's where the highest levels are. We're on a main road. Well, it's actually where traffic is congested. So if you're near a traffic lights, near bus shelters, if you're close to some junction or a bottleneck, then you'll find there's more traffic there, so therefore air pollution levels are higher. And you think, well, why is that? Well, actually, not many people know, but an idling vehicle produces almost twice the emissions of a moving vehicle. Yeah? It's due to incomplete combustion. So when these motor vehicles have been designed to drive, and they're driving at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, it's very efficient burning the fuel, but when they stop and they're sitting still, very inefficient. So actually it's twice the emission. So when you see a vehicle idling, then you have to understand that if there's a child nearby, they're breathing twice as much than if the vehicle was moving by. In addition to that, when you think about a stationary vehicle and you think, hang on, that's tons of weight. So what does it take to move tons of weight? Well, it burns lots and lots of fuel. So when you see a vehicle accelerating from stationary, it's burning around 10 times the emissions. It's producing 10 times the emissions as if driving by. So when you think about these busy roads and you see vehicles and they're kind of accelerating to move forward a couple of feet, and then they're braking, and then they're accelerating, and then they're braking, and they're idling for a long period of time, that's your heavy congestion. In addition to this, when vehicles brake, you're getting tyre wear, road surface wear, engine wear, brake wear, and this is that particulate matter we talked about, the really small microscopic stuff. So we then said, okay, well, we now know how bad things are, we know where it is, but what is it that's actually coming through? And this is the bit where we kind of get this link between the climate emergency, which Extinction Rebellion are really focusing on and brought the attention, and today, air pollution. And these are intrinsically linked because it's from the burning of fossil fuel. It's the cars, the exhaust pipes, particularly in cities, the fumes that come out and go into our air and warm our planet, but also go into our children's lungs, in all of our lungs, but particularly our children as they are so close to the exhaust pipe. And this is the stuff that's damaging their health. Now, in London we have hundreds of thousands of children who have reduced lung capacity. We're talking 5, 10, 12, recent reports, 13% reduced lung capacity by the time they are 8 to 9 years old because of the air they breathe. And to me that just seems wrong. You know, this is the stuff that impacts them for the rest of their life. It increases their chance of asthma, and we have 1.1 million children in the UK with asthma, a ridiculous level, the highest in Europe, one of the highest in the world, because over a third of our vehicles are diesel, and diesel exhaust is carcinogenic. Group 1, like tobacco smoke. Now, not many people know that, so when you talk about carcinogenic Group 1 like tobacco smoke, researchers actually now talk about equivalent of around smoking 130 cigarettes a year. Passive smoking 10 to 20 cigarettes a day. So we're talking about babies smoking, young children, infants, passive smoking this much. If it was cigarettes, there'd be an uproar. But if it's a vehicle and a vehicle is idling outside of a school, and you've got 200 children waiting to get in the school gates, and you've got 6 vehicles just here with their engines running, idling, and these fumes are coming out, then we have to start to say to ourselves, okay, what is this going? Just need to move on to pavement. Is that okay?
Good.
There we go. Now we've got the cars coming through and the vans coming through, so we have to move back slightly. There we go. So as you can see, we've organised for a van to come here so we can explain how high a vehicle exhaust pipe is and how the fumes will affect children. Very kind of them to come along. So, a little thing we talk about is when we talk about air pollution, we talk about air pollution exposure, and we think, well, how can we reduce children's air pollution exposure? And we look to the government and say, well, what can you do? We look to the council, we look to the Mayor for London, and we say, well, one of the major problems we've got, we know, is around vehicle idling. So we say, well, what's the law to stop vehicles idling? We know it's bad for children. There's 200 of them outside of school, there's a vehicle idling right there. How can we stop it? They say, well, actually it is against the law. You say, fantastic, well, let's take action. Now, if I go up to a driver who's idling and I say, can you please turn your engine off? The driver doesn't have to do anything. I need to contact the council. They will then send an authorised person down to the school. They will then observe the person idling. Yep, they're idling. They'll then go up, knock on the window, say, can you switch your engine off? They will then give them 2 to 5 minutes grace period to turn their engine off. 2 to 5 minutes. Just to put that into context, 1 minute of idling is equivalent to around 150 balloons filled with toxic gas, including things like cyanide. So they give them 5 minutes to turn off their engine. They then knock back on and say, okay, I'm now going to issue with a fine, at which point the person turns off or drives away and no fine is issued. So there is absolutely no incentive for people not to idle. So people idle every day. So when you see children outside schools and you see these vehicles idling next to them, and you've got to question yourself, well, what is the council, what is the mayor, what is the government actually doing to protect children? At the moment, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And you question, well, why is this? And we think, well, you burn more fuel when you're idling, and someone makes money from burning of fuel. So if we stop people burning fuel, then actually we're going to lose a lot of revenue. So the fuel companies don't want to stop burning fuel, they don't want to stop idling. The car companies, well, they don't want it either. And then you think about the Exchequer. Now the Exchequer earns 68 pence per pound from the fuel at the pump. 68 pence per pound. So how are they incentivized to stop people idling? They're not. The more people idle, the more fuel, the better for the economy. So where does it come into the list about our children's health? Well, at the moment, it's way down. It's way down. 400,000 children in London alone with stunted lung capacity, 1.1 million children in the UK with asthma. And we know that the school run, the doctors are all telling us, the scientists are telling us, the school run is the huge part of the exposure. Public Health England have said, we must stop idling outside schools. And yet, it happens every single day. So, we have to actually recognise that the government isn't going to help us. The mayor, I've spoken to him, I actually went to City Hall, we sat down and spoke to him, he said he's going to raise the fine to £160. I said, well, the fine doesn't make any difference because no one gets fined. He said, in that case, you need to support me in lobbying the government. I said, well, I am. I've actually got a petition, it's NO2 idling, no to idling petition. Please sign the petition and share it with your millions of followers. He said, actually, I can't sign all petitions. I said, yes, but you want to solve this problem, you say you want me to help you lobby the government, please sign the petition. We're waiting for the sign. So, ladies and gentlemen, the reality is, even this small thing around stopping vehicles idling next to children, it's not going to change. Now, I've worked with Extinction Rebellion in Wandsworth. They've come with me and we've blocked the A3 on occasion on Clean Air Day, handed out cake to drivers, explained to them how bad idling is and try to make a difference. And again, we're here today with Extinction Rebellion, trying to raise the awareness of air pollution, the impact on children's health. Just a very small thing to ask, which is, if we know the government aren't going to change, we know TfL, the mayor, the councils are not going to protect our children, it becomes down to us as people to actually stand up and make a difference. If that means we have to rebel, then we need to rebel, because we need to get the message across in a non-violent way that this is unacceptable, that we have to prioritise the health of our children over the comfort and convenience of drivers, and that's what it is. It's simply someone sitting in a vehicle with their engine on to stay warm, or to keep cool, or to charge their mobile phone, and while they're doing that, they're poisoning themselves, the children in the backseat, and hundreds of children who are anywhere near the exhaust pipe. So this has got to stop. So I ask you to say no to idling. It seems like a very small battle, a very small change, but I do believe if we can nick this one, if we can win this small thing for our children, it's actually asking every driver to take climate action. It's saying, we are driving from A to B, we don't want you driving, but if you insist, when you get to your destination, turn off your engine. Don't burn fossil fuel unnecessarily, don't poison our air, don't poison our children's lungs. So, NO2 idling, no to idling, there's a petition on change.org, you can type it into Google. Please do sign, please do share the petition, and hopefully over time we will get the 100,000 signatures we need to get Parliament to debate this and start making that little change. Because I think once we make that change, it means we have to educate everybody why they can no longer idle, because diesel exhaust is carcinogenic. It's damaging our damaging our health, it's damaging our environment, it's warming our atmosphere. These are great reasons just to make a very simple change. So thank you very much for listening today. Have a great day, and continue giving your great support to Extinction Rebellion. Thank you.